So today you're going to meet Trey Sheneman. Trey works at Ramsey Solutions. We're really excited to have him. He's the executive marketing director there. But Trey doesn't just preach these principles that we're going to talk about. He actually lives them with the rest of the Ramsey Plus team. They would love to give everyone in your church or organization the tools that they need to budget, save, and take control of their finances and money. A Ramsey Plus site solution is the most flexible, efficient, and cost-effective way to bring Ramsey Plus to your team. And you'll get a dedicated relationship manager to support you every step of the way. To learn more, you can watch a demo webinar. This is exclusive just for us, okay? So just for our community, we're really excited to have partnered with Ramsey Solutions for this season, season 5 of our podcast. We've come a long way since we began just a few years ago. So this webinar, you can actually go and watch it. It's a demo webinar of Ramsey Plus. It's a brand new product that Dave Ramsey just launched. And we have an exclusive webinar, and you can go to daveramsey.com/cc webinar. Again, daveramsey.com/cc webinar, and go check it out. Watch the webinar, give us some feedback, let us know what you're thinking and how you're going to use it. Really excited for this episode. Let's just jump on in.
To the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it can be a challenging and ever-changing role because we've worked in the church too, which is why we built a community with over 25,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Katie Allred and Jahng, who want to help equip you to reach more of your congregation and community. This is the place where we'll talk shop with fellow practitioners and professionals about what's working, what's not, and what's next. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. So excited you could join us today. I am excited because we have an amazing guest, such a wonderful human, with Trey Sheneman, and he works with Ramsey, Dave Ramsey. You may have heard of him. I know, just a small corporation, a little thing that helps people with Christian finance, personal finance. And Trey is the executive marketing director at Dave Ramsey, and really excited to have him today. Today we're covering something I love, which is the topic of persona. So Trey, what do you think? What is a persona?
Well, Katie, first of all, it is a joy and a pleasure to be here. I love the church, serving the church now, cut my teeth in communication and marketing in the church right out of seminary. So, I feel like I'm talking to my people today, and it's awesome to work with Dave. And personas are an integral part of how we actually do what we do as communicators. So to me, personas are caricatures of the ideal person that you're trying to communicate with a set of messages or a messaging framework. And normally, when you're thinking about a persona, it's always, to me, it's based around a couple of key factors. One is the demographical profile of the persona, age, income, way of life, kids, no kids. It's that very like build the list of who is the persona. When I think about the person that's going to have this message resonate with the most, who do they like? Who do they read? What brands do they follow? It's demographic and psychographic. But I think the key part to really mapping a good persona is understanding the felt need and the problem that they have that you're ultimately trying to solve with whatever the message is. And I'm sure we'll get into some examples of that. But, the come to church message because you need Jesus message is a very different felt need than we have children's ministry, we have this discipleship group, we have this, we have that. Right. So I think the big one of the gaps that I see sometimes when I talk to my brothers and sisters that work in the church is they might have thought through a persona. And what I would argue is that it is the catalog of persona development that is really what you need to work on to kind of take the outreach of your ministry to the next level.
For sure. Yeah. So when I think of persona, I actually really think of like the seeker journey, which is something I learned from a Media Impact International, which is a ministry group I worked with. And they kind of just talked about like, you go through the 4 phases, right? Like of awareness and consideration, decision, and then we go into discipleship. And so along those to get somebody to even go to awareness, we have to realize their needs. So I know you said just a little bit about felt needs. Why
Yeah.
is that important, and what kind of felt needs would be important for the church to focus in on?
Yeah. So I'll put my church hat on for a second. I think through
Yeah.
the stage of the funnel of the user journey or the seeker journey in a very similar way. I just use alliteration because it helps you remember them all. So I say awareness, attraction, acquisition, activation, advocacy. And so to that awareness point, to me, the awareness question is, I have a need. What are my options? Like that's
Right.
generally the question that you're trying to answer somebody. You want to become an option that is on their radar that they
Right.
could consider when it's time for them to step into step two, which is
Yeah.
consideration, as you said, or attraction, as I call it, which is more of the educational, nurturing kind of step of the
Mm-hmm.
funnel where you're trying to put the right set of information in front of them so they can know why you're the best option of their options. So when you're thinking about awareness, I think the primary goal that we go for in the awareness stage of our funnels that we build, that I think a church really should consider when it's starting this, is really attention. Like, are you actually capturing, is the increase of your attention share in
Mm-hmm.
your target persona growing on a monthly basis? So what do I mean by that? Attention to me is a measure of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the greatest our time is our greatest currency that we give out to people because we can never get it back. We can't replenish it. And so I would, at the awareness stage, like one of the things I encourage my marketers with, and that I would encourage anyone in the church communication space with, especially in this kind of pandemic world we live in, where digital is so much more of a cornerstone of our strategy right now. I would be really focused on um, what sort of time measures can I put on the personas that I'm tracking with some of my digital outlets. So time on site, from a website standpoint, dwell metrics on ads if you run any sort of Facebook strategy, time consumed
Mm-hmm.
with video, especially if you're running video up the funnel, or if you're even doing sermon snippets or things of that nature, getting creative. Like, I would be really going, okay, on average, I'm trying to see my time of engagement start to increase,
Right.
and sort of net new viewership. So I know that something where I'm constantly adding new people within that persona into
Right.
the flow of the awareness level, helping them understand that I'm an option, whether it's for a Sunday morning option, if it's for a small group option, whatever it might be that we're trying to promote.
Yeah. So we talked about this term, felt needs. And,
Yeah.
for our viewers who do not know what felt needs means, what exactly is a felt need?
So the way I talk about felt needs is I say felt needs are always thought needs before they're felt. And so to me, if I were going to go to Germany and live for a year,
Sure.
and I wanted to share the gospel with people when I got there, whatever it was I was going there to market, I'm not downplaying or distilling the sharing of the gospel down to marketing, but there are a lot of similarities there. If I was going there to do that, one of the greatest things I could do in order to win some people over to the Lord would be to learn German before I go, so
Sure.
that I can actually speak the language that those people speak. And so I think when we're starting to talk about our personas and we're starting to talk about felt needs, we actually have to figure out a way to kind of, in theory, sort of like enter the conversation people are already having with themselves in their own heads
Mm-hmm.
about that problem, and say it back to them in a way that they can understand and they would even talk about it, so that we can build trust. They'll
Right.
move down the funnel and we can start to have them participate in the conversation we want to have.
Yeah.
So a felt need to me is recognizing and identifying, okay, in our target market where our
Sure.
persona lives right now, these are the common struggles we think the large
Right.
majority of our persona are thinking about,
Yeah.
feeling, and experiencing. And these are ways that they're probably talking about them right now. How do we start talking about them in
Right.
the same way, with a soft invitation at the end to just start becoming a part of the conversation? So it's thoughts, it's
Yeah.
feelings, it's emotions that plays itself out in decision making and stresses and all of those things.
Yeah. It's really those Maslow hierarchy of needs,
That's right.
and I like how you said common struggles. And then, but then how are they searching for the answer to those common struggles? I think that's the question that we should really phrase this as, is how do people Google, How do they search for the answer to their struggles? And then does your church have an answer for those struggles available online at the end of that content funnel?
Yeah, I think, and to that point, that's a great way to kind of call it out. I would say, in that very search specific example, one of the things that I've seen that start to happen a lot more is people search like they talk now more than ever, because
100%.
they've gotten conditioned to talking to these guys and getting them to bring the answer up, and so voice driven search is really becoming one of the leading edge kind of
Yes.
strategies of, we can actually write and provide content that's human first and for humans.
Yeah.
And when in today's world, we don't have to solely serve the search engines anymore to be found online. And so I do think it's important that when you're thinking about video snippets, a YouTube page, YouTube second biggest search engine on the planet after Google.
Right.
I mean, people don't
It's
ever
part
think
of Google.
YouTube. That's exactly right. People don't ever think of YouTube as an extension of that, somewhere they
Right.
can go and be found. And so I think to that point, like being able to think people are thinking, and then talk
Right.
like they're going to talk, and then talk like that in
Right.
several different mediums, whether
Yeah.
it's on your social channels, on your website, in your search engines, for your
Yeah.
blogs, if you're doing blogs, in your emails,
Right.
when you send your emails out using headline copy and subject line copy, it's really going to resonate with those felt needs in that way.
Yeah, and Google prefers a local answer. I think that's
That's
the
right.
important thing to say here, is that you don't have to spend. I mean, first off, Google does have, an ad grant for nonprofits that some churches might or might not take. It just kind of depends. But and you could use that to definitely start your funnel. But the thing is, you don't have to spend $1. The thing is, Google will prefer a local answer if there is one. So for the felt need of prayer, right, which skyrocketed during the pandemic. So we're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic, like what those felt needs were. But one of them was prayer. And so the question is, did your church have content to the answer to the search question, how do I pray?
Right.
And the thing is, like, Google and YouTube both would have preferred to give someone a local answer to that question. They would have shown it first. However, and we probably have, that's the thing that you were just speaking about, like sermon series and stuff on YouTube. We have those answers in sermon series, but are we naming our sermon titles correctly so that people can go back and find those answers? Or are we just naming it like the date and Romans, like Romans in the day? It's fine. I mean, it totally is. Or like Matthew, I don't know, 28 or something. Like, that's fine, but it's not really telling the people where. And that would be great, like, if I was a theological scholar and I was looking for something on Romans in July of 2020. But there's a better way to do it, right? So that people who are seeking answers can find our church so that they can actually consider it. Ramsey Solutions has definitely been pivoting lately. 25 years ago, Dave Ramsey started teaching Financial Peace University from an overhead projector. And now they have an all-access membership course to their best money content and tools called Ramsey Plus. Now you can give everyone in your church or organization the tools that they need to learn how to handle their money God's way. Budget so that they can take control of their finances for good, and track their progress in all-in-one digital package. So visit daveramsey.com/cc podcast. Again, that is daveramsey.com/cc podcast for this exclusive offer just for our community.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I do this too. Look, and I've been in this game for a little bit, and I still do this. Sometimes I have to remind myself that I'm a consumer too, and that there's certain ways I actually go out and behave outside of my day job. And sometimes it's like, hey, what would you be looking for right now? How would you say it? And I wouldn't go and say John chapter 6 verse 3. I would go and say, how do I find this answer? How to find an answer? So I think what you brought up is great. And to your point, the church is one of the most natural content creators on the earth. I mean,
we do it every week,
every day, every week. And so there's got to be some sort of how do you keep a piece of your time in sort of like a rapid response mode, where you can say, oh, this is a trend. This isn't going away for a while.
Right.
How can we be opportunistic and capitalistic while showing love, the love of Christ in a really unique way, we have this content. How can we spice it up and serve it up? So I think that's really creative.
Yeah. So I guess the next question I have for you is, what's one common persona trait that churches can zero in on?
One, oh man. So I think no matter where people are, and I'm going to put my money hat on because I work for a money brand, but I think no matter where people are on the spectrum, they always have some sort of a concern about money. I
Sure.
just think that money concern ranges from I've had it, I'm dead broke, I don't know what's going on, to my kids are about to go off to college and I'm ready to retire and move on to the next season and I'm not really sure what to do. And so for us, you're the treasure of your heart in that issue of money and being able to actually look at money as an object that is freely given and freely taken away
Mm-hmm.
instead of as an idol. To me, no matter where you are in church, that is going to be a common denominator for a
Sure.
large percentage of your persona. So kind of money fears and money worries would be one. And then this year, man, what a year this has been.
Yeah.
I think another kind of felt need that people are experiencing is like security about tomorrow. And I think those two things are really intimately connected to each other, just fears of the unknown and what's going to happen. Maybe I didn't have a plan and now I want to have
Right.
a plan. I want to feel secure. And we all know we should want to feel eternally secure. That's
Yeah.
kind of mission critical zero here. I think those are the two this year that have gotten really poked a lot in people.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. So we have to think about, with that, what's missing from many churches' playbooks, about raising funds,
Yeah. And
especially during times of crisis, because I know a lot of churches are dealing with the loss of tithing during this time. So how do we respond to that as church
yeah,
leaders?
yeah, I think having a plan is kind of the critical thing here. Many people went into this year and have been super reactionary. To me, a
Right.
reaction is emotional. It's in the moment. It's sometimes unguided. It's very like we have to react. This happened, and I think where we have to move is from reaction to response. The response is calculated. It's thoughtful. It weighs out the pros and cons, and then it makes a good decision. And I think both the church and its parishioners, the congregants, right now have been in reaction mode, and it's time for
Right.
us to really kind of take a step back and say, this thing isn't going away. It's going to have a lingering impact. I don't know, Katie, for years,
Years.
probably.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's going to have lingering impact in like geographical impact and physical distancing and how we do
Mhm.
church. But I think the big one we don't talk about is the psychological impact that is going to linger in the church. And
Yeah.
so one of the ways you like ground that psychology and that sort of uncertainty you experience in your life is to come up with a plan and then go and stick with it. And I
Right.
think for a church, like whether it's a extra carve out in their budget moving forward, that's like a defense fund, pandemic defense fund, if it's really thinking about finally making the decision to get out of debt as a church and not
Right.
carry those amortized notes anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big thing we teach. I think there's got to be something that you have to do differently. It might not be
Right.
exactly what it is we teach, but it's not just going back to how you were before this
Before.
happened. That to me is the big thing I
Yeah.
would encourage
There's
you.
no way we can go back to before.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's so sad. I like have to grieve it almost every day. The fact that I'm like, I'm pretty sure life is never going to be the same, right? Like restaurants and church and live events and school, like I teach, I'm a professor and we're in person right now and it is so weird. um, it's just so very odd. And so it's not bad, it's just different. And so, and we have to grieve those kind of losses, like what this looks like going forward. And so, I know you mentioned, getting your church out of debt, like amortization schedules and whatnot. I actually just refinanced my house, which was a major win since the pandemic, because I guess caused interest rates to go down. Yeah.
They're nuts right now.
Yeah. So it was good. It was a good choice for me. I saved like, I don't know, $50,000 or something by
Yeah,
doing that in
we did too.
interest.
Yeah,
So,
we got our 15-year down almost a full point, saved about $60,000-$70,000.
isn't that nice?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, this is not about this.
Not
This
about
podcast
loans.
is
I
not
hear
about
you.
refinancing, but it's a great time to do that. I don't know. Don't take legal for financial advice from me, but yeah. But we're talking about, getting out of debt, getting your church out of debt, getting people out of debt in your church. So I know that y'all just launched a whole new product. It's crazy. You kind of completely changed the way Ramsey does things, and I am excited about it because for me, I am a millennial who grew up 21st century first, smartphone first, TV, computer, that kind of stuff first, and workbook second, So I'm intrigued by what this model is. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Ramsey Plus?
Yeah. So February of last year, we kind of could see the writing on the wall that we needed to be a little more digital. At the time, we were saying digital friendly.
Yeah,
We are now have made the decision we got to be digital
digital
first, which is
first.
a bit of
Yeah,
a culture shift. So
digital
we
native.
started kind of building the chassis underneath our flagship product, which is Financial Peace University, to kind of be able to take it digital. And then thank God, a year later, March of this year, whenever everything started hitting the fan, it was like, well, we were sort of in this slow crawl on doing this digital thing. Like, what if we just went all in? And I got to tell you, the response has been really special. So as of the spring of this year, we now have a suite of digital first products called Ramsey Plus, one of which Financial Peace University is in there. But honestly, Katie, it is, there's so many other things that are in there now. Like, it's super valuable.
Yeah,
The cool thing is Ramsey Plus subscription is a similar price to what Financial Peace used to just be on its own. So we tried to keep the value where it was, but we're essentially building a digital suite that we believe is everything you need to win with money personally, whether
right.
you're an individual. And then the cool thing is we now, in September, we're launching the version of it for churches. So Ramsey Plus for churches, kind of a blend of FPU, Right Now Media, and Excel, like keeping your church finances and budgeting and helping your people. And so,
Oh wow! So there's like
um,
even church budgeting involved.
like we're getting there. So the first
Okay.
pass is this, we're kind of in beta on that side of it now, but we're hoping to
Yeah,
be able
that's
to
a
help
that's a big that's
churches.
a big need for sure. I
Yep.
get people asking me all the time, do I have any resources on church budgeting? And I'm
So
like, I have no idea. I'm not an accountant.
yeah, amen. And so it, again, to temper that requirement, we're like super early in these conversations, but we
Sure.
believe if we can help the pastors see the way that their people's finances are changing, and then get the
Yeah.
pastors' finances to change on top of it, the
Yeah.
necessary next step is then for the church's
Sure.
financial approach to
So get a
adapt.
taste of it by trying Ramsey Plus first, and
Yeah,
then
that's kind of the idea.
soon, yeah, you'll
So
see the
the
other.
cool thing too is, we by making it digital, we're able to give it away for free for a couple of weeks to everybody too, which is something we always struggle
Yeah, that's awesome.
to figure out how to do with a physical product. Like, how do you just give it away? When do you get it back? What are we going to do? So it's just opened a lot of doors for us that weren't open before. And honestly, it's helped us change lives. Like right now, we're seeing about 1 out of every 2 of our trial starts that's coming in is somebody who's never considered doing something with Ramsey before. And ultimately for us, many people know, Dave is obviously a strong evangelical Christian. Many of us here, nearly all of us here, are as well. And so for us, finances is just a means to an end. We're
Mhm.
ultimately trying to lead people to the foot of Jesus and let them find him, the peace that he provides. We're just using money as the doorway to get there. And so I'm stoked about the next 2 or 3 years and what God's going to do with this product as a way to open doors for people, the church. Yeah. So COVID kind of forced our hand a little bit, but it's actually turned out quite well.
Mhm. And so, how could you use Ramsey Plus as part of a small group?
Yeah. So we made the decision in the spring to add in I know a lot of people have Zoom fatigue right now, but we did make kind of connect in a Zoom chassis into the financial peace
That's cool.
portion. But truthfully, we have people that are doing small group classes online right now, around all 7 of the different classes that are inside of Ramsey Plus, not just
Yeah,
financial peace. And so the idea is we provide you with the guides, the curriculum guides, the questions, how to actually lead a small group. And so just in the last 60 days since we started soft launching it, even to churches, before we go public with it next month, we've had 80 churches sign up in the last 60 days. They kind of use this as their fall small minutes, their small group ministry
that's
chassis.
awesome
Is to say, we know money is a common struggle right now.
for
We're going
sure.
to get it on board and let you all kind of go through it together. And we're even doing Zoom launch parties with churches where they get on and get everybody on. We do a big celebration, and it's like hey, we're breaking out from here and everybody's going to go and start their small group. So it's definitely something that we're trying. It's still super early, guys. It is not perfect, but we're enjoying it so far. It's a very different kind of right now. I use the word, it's a very ecclesiastical approach, every season kind of approach right now. But I actually think it's going to be the way we do it from now on.
Yeah, I think, it's such an interesting approach and different, but I definitely see where it's going to serve churches really well. I actually did FPU online in an online small group as well in March. Right when the pandemic began, my church decided they had like 100 books that came with the login for the access online and all that stuff. And they were like, we're just going to give them away. So whoever in our, church wants to do FPU, we're going to, and so I signed up. And so I did that through March through June, I think, and or the beginning of June. And yeah, it was fantastic. Just to really, I don't know, I'd never done FPU. I'd read FPU like by myself or whatever years ago, I think during college. And so it was so interesting. And I read Dave's book about business. What's that one?
EntreLeadership.
Yeah, I'd read that one in college as well. And just, I've always enjoyed his curriculum, but it was fun to do it as a group, and it was fun to do it, I think, via Zoom. It was just a totally different experience. And at the moment I was so desperate for community
that
it was something that I really needed. And
talk about a felt need in the world right now.
Yeah, 100%.
People to connect with.
Yeah, it was just nice to see people's faces, not mask faces. And it was good. It was so good. And so I think churches really could, just an amazing small group curriculum, something that's really, interesting to talk about. People they love and hate to talk about finance. It's one of those things that is notorious and greatly praised. So it's just, what an interesting felt need, and definitely one that people need to answer during this time. Well, Trey, how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. That's kind of my social network of choice. So I'm the only Trey Sheneman on LinkedIn, SHENEMAN. If you want to find me on Facebook, you're more than welcome to. You're going to see a lot of pictures of my kids. If you do that, if you want to talk shop, you can find me on LinkedIn. You also email me, trey.sheneman@daveramsey.com. If there's any questions out there about persona mapping, you're starting to really take that on for your church, love to throw you the bone. We do get ministry time here at Ramsey, so I get 5 days a year to give away to nonprofits. So if you need some help, happy to help.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Trey. I feel like we walked away with so much information that churches really can start applying right now. So just thank you so much.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure. God bless you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Church Communications Podcast with Katie Allred and Kenny Jahng. If you liked our show today and want to learn more, you can join our Facebook group with over 25,000 church leaders. Simply search for Church Communications on Facebook. And if you liked today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to become better communicators for the church. And finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.